What if everything you thought you knew about history was wrong? It is not just wrong. It is a carefully constructed cage for your mind. A story so simple, so linear, and so utterly devoid of magic that you have never thought to question its bars. What if the rise and fall of civilizations, the discoveries of science, the very timeline of human existence was not a record of our ascent, but the meticulous cover-up of our fall? Imagine a world where the ancient Egyptian deities you see in museums were not gods to be worshipped, but the titles of cosmic librarians and interstellar wardens, the holders of the keys to a forgotten civilization. A lost world, humming with an unimaginable wisdom, a city of light and power that was deliberately and violently erased from the memory of our species. Prepare to unlock the profound secrets of Thoth and Atlantis. This is not another theory. This is a revelation that will forever change your perception of our past, our present, and the terrifying, beautiful potential of our future. The story you were told begins in the dust. It begins with primitive man, huddled in caves, discovering fire by accident, slowly, painfully, inching his way towards civilization over countless millennia. This story is the foundational lie. It is the sedative that keeps you small, that makes you believe you are the pinnacle of a long, arduous climb, so that you never suspect you are actually living in the rubble at the bottom of a shattered mountain. The true history of humanity does not begin with the Stone Age. It ends there. The true beginning was a golden age, a global civilization of such breathtaking sophistication that our own technological world is but a crude and barbaric echo. This was the civilization of Atlantis. And its chief architect, its master scientist, and its final, grieving archivist was the being you have come to know as Thoth, or Tehuti. He did not just record the history of this lost world. He was the one who hid it. He was the one who, in the final, dying moments of the Golden Age, made the terrible and necessary choice to quarantine the truth, to bury it so deeply that only a future humanity, a humanity that had healed from its own self-inflicted apocalypse, would ever be able to find it. He did not hide scrolls in a jar or tablets in a tomb. The records of Atlantis were not written on something so fragile as stone or papyrus. The records are alive. They are a multi-layered, interactive, and conscious library, a technology of memory so advanced it has been mistaken for the soul itself. Thoth encoded the secrets of the lost world in 3 distinct, interlocking archives, a trinity of remembrance designed to survive the long, dark age of our collective amnesia. The first is the Stone Archive, the great, silent, monolithic structures that litter our planet and defy every law of our known history, the Giza pyramids, the Andean temples, the sunken cities off the coast of Japan. These are not tombs or temples. They are the hard drives, the dormant, crystalline servers, each one holding a fragment of the total knowledge. The second is the Genetic Archive, the so-called junk DNA within your own body, a living, biological library that holds the cellular memory of your own Atlantean ancestry. The third, and most important, is the Energetic Archive, the Akasha, a non-physical, quantum field in which the complete, uncensored, holographic record of every thought, every event, and every secret of the lost world is stored. These 3 archives are designed to work as one. The stone structures are designed to resonate with the rising frequency of the planet, which in turn is designed to trigger the dormant codes in your DNA, which in turn gives you the biological and psychic capacity to consciously access the Akashic field. It is a time-locked, triple-key system of awakening, and the time is now. The system of control that governs your world is in a state of absolute, abject terror, because the servers are coming online. The sleepers are beginning to remember, and Thoth's final, forbidden records, the true and complete history of Atlantis, are beginning to bleed through the cracks of our manufactured reality. And once you read them, once you truly understand them, you will no longer be a prisoner of the present. You will become an inheritor of the past and an architect of a future they never wanted you to know was possible. The first and most world-shattering secret contained within the records is the true physics of our reality, a science that was the very foundation of the Atlantean world. The secret is this: consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Matter is a byproduct of consciousness. The universe is not a physical machine that happens to have pockets of awareness within it. It is a single, infinite, and intelligent field of consciousness that is dreaming, thinking, and imagining itself into the illusion of form. This was not a philosophy in Atlantis. It was a form of engineering. They did not have a separate science and spirituality. They were one and the same. And the mastery of this science allowed them to do things that we would consider magic or the work of gods. The records describe in precise geometric detail the science of manifestation through sound. The Atlanteans knew that matter is a standing wave of energy, a frequency held in a stable pattern. To create, they did not need to manipulate physical objects. They needed to generate the precise sonic frequency of the object they wished to create. The great temples were not just built with this technology. They were this technology. They were massive, harmonic instruments, resonating chambers that allowed the priest engineers to use their own highly trained voices to sing reality into existence. They could precipitate water from the air. They could levitate multi-ton blocks of stone as if they were bubbles. They could crystallize light itself into tangible forms. This is not a metaphor. The blocks of the pyramids were not quarried and dragged. They were tuned and floated. The intricate carvings were not chiseled. They were sung into the stone. Their entire world was a symphony. A conscious and deliberate act of creation, orchestrated by beings who understood the mathematical relationship between thought, sound, and form. The records also contain the complete science of the human energy body. The Atlanteans did not see the body as a simple biological machine. They saw it as a luminous, multi-dimensional vehicle for consciousness, an intricate grid of chakras, nadis, and meridians, all designed to be a receiver and transmitter of cosmic energy. They understood the science of Kundalini, the serpent fire, not as a vague mystical force, but as a precise biological technology for upgrading the human vessel. They had developed techniques using breath, meditation, and immersion in the resonant fields of the cities to safely and consciously activate this inner fire, allowing an individual to shed their dense, carbon-based body and transmute it into a body of crystalline light, a sahu, achieving a state of physical immortality. This was not a rare event for a chosen few. It was the standard curriculum of their mystery schools. It was the common goal of their civilization, but the most forbidden aspect of their physics was their understanding of time. The records confirm what we have explored in the fragmented lore. Time is not linear. The Atlanteans did not just know this, they used it. The Great Crystal, the heart of their planetary grid, was not just a power plant, it was a temporal engine. The high priests could use its immense energy to create stable, localized fields in which time could be bent. They could scry the field of probability, viewing potential futures with stunning clarity. They could also look into the past, not as ghosts, but as conscious observers, a technology that was later corrupted into the dangerous and flawed mask of Ra. They understood that all time exists in the eternal now, and that the point of power to change any reality is always the present moment. They did not live in fear of the future or regret of the past. They were masters of the moment, and in that mastery, they were free. This is the world that was lost, a world where the laws of physics were not a set of limitations, but a toolkit for gods. A world where the human body was not a cage, but a starship. A world where time was not a prison, but a canvas. And the records contain the complete instruction manual. This is the knowledge that the system is so terrified of you remembering. Because a being who knows that their consciousness creates reality, that their body is a vehicle of light, and that time is an illusion, can no longer be a slave. The second great secret of the records is the truth of our cosmic context. The story of humanity did not begin on Earth. We are not a lonely, accidental species that evolved in isolation. We are a part of a vast, ancient, and incredibly complex galactic community. The records of Thoth contain the complete, uncensored history of our stellar origins, our genetic heritage, and the ancient wars and alliances that shaped the destiny of this solar system long before the first human soul ever incarnated here. This knowledge has been deliberately and violently suppressed, replaced with simplistic creation myths and the arrogant, geocentric dogma of scientific materialism. The system needs you to believe that you are alone, because a species that knows it has a galactic family can no longer be controlled by petty planetary politics. The records detail the Syrian covenant in its full, unredacted glory. They describe the arrival of the Syrian architects, the gods from the Dog Star, not as alien invaders, but as our elder brothers, our cosmic kin. They were a race of master geneticists and consciousness engineers who had guided the evolution of life in this sector of the galaxy for eons. They saw in the nascent primate species of early Earth a unique potential. The potential to hold a perfect balance of the deepest animal instincts and the highest divine consciousness, to become a living bridge between the heavens and the Earth. They chose Earth as a grand project, a planetary nursery for a new and unique form of divine humanity. They did not create us, they upgraded us. The records describe in precise scientific detail the process of our genetic upliftment. The Syrians took the existing hominid species and carefully, artfully, spliced their own higher frequency crystalline DNA into its genome. This is the true origin of the missing link. It was not a slow, evolutionary step. It was a quantum leap, a direct technological intervention. The so-called junk DNA that makes up 98% of our genome is not junk. It is the Syrian upgrade. It is a dormant biological archive, a library of cosmic knowledge and godlike potential waiting to be brought online. The records also reveal the true identity and nature of Ra. He was not a Syrian. He was the native solar intelligence of our own star, a powerful but also a young, arrogant, and deeply insecure consciousness. The Syrian covenant was at first a partnership. Ra provided the raw, life-giving energy, and the Syrians provided the sophisticated evolutionary blueprint. But as the human experiment flourished, as our consciousness began to expand, and we developed a deep, loving relationship with our Syrian mentors, Ra's insecurity turned to a paranoid, cosmic jealousy. This is the origin of the war in heaven. It was not a battle of good versus evil. It was a custody battle for the soul of humanity. Ra, in his wounded pride, began to see the Syrian influence as a foreign contamination. He wanted humanity to be his children and his alone. He wanted our worship, our focus, our undivided attention. He began to broadcast a new frequency from the sun itself, a frequency of separation, of fear of the other, of a new solar-centric religion that demanded absolute loyalty to a single external god. The records describe the brutal, silent war of frequency that followed, the schism between the Re-aligned sons of Belial and the Syrian loyalist sons of the Law of One. They detail the corruption of the Atlantean grid, its transformation from a tool of enlightenment into a weapon of psychic control. And they contain the full, horrifying account of the final cataclysm. The fall of Atlantis was not an accident. It was the deliberate and necessary act of the Syrian loyalists, a final, desperate measure to prevent the entire planet from being permanently enslaved by Ra's tyrannical program. They triggered the overload of the Great Crystal to shatter the grid, to break the power of the Sons of Belial, and to give humanity a chance to reboot, even if it meant a 12,000-year dark age of amnesia. They chose to save our sovereignty at the cost of our memory. Thoth, as the chief archivist and a being who held allegiance to both the solar and the stellar, was tasked with preserving the truth of this tragic history. He knew that one day we would be ready to remember. We would be ready to understand that we are the children of two parents, the children of the sun and the children of the stars, and that our ultimate destiny is not to choose one over the other, but to integrate the fiery power of our solar heritage with the luminous wisdom of our stellar soul. The records hold the key to this integration. They are a map back to our own wholeness. And to read them is to remember that we have never been alone, and that our place in the cosmos is far grander and far more important than we have ever been allowed to imagine. The third and most intimate secret of the records is the one that has been most heavily distorted by the religions of the world. It is the complete, uncensored science of the soul. The Atlanteans did not have faith, they had physics. They did not have beliefs about the afterlife. They had a functional, working model of the mechanics of reincarnation, of soul evolution, and of the ultimate paths of ascension. The records of Thoth are not a book of prayers. They are a technical manual for the immortal, multidimensional self. And the truth they reveal is a direct and absolute threat to any system that uses the fear of death and the promise of a future salvation as a tool of control. The records confirm that the soul is not a byproduct of the body. The body is a temporary vehicle for the soul. They describe the soul, the Ka, and the Ba, not as a vague, spiritual essence, but as a complex, luminous, energetic body, an intricate anatomy of light and frequency. This energy body is the true self, and it exists before birth and continues after death. The records detail the process of incarnation with the precision of a modern engineer. They describe how the soul, from a higher, non-physical dimension, chooses its bloodline, its parents, and the primary life lessons it wishes to experience. There are no accidents. Your life is not a random series of events. It is a curriculum, a set of challenges and opportunities that your own soul has designed for its own growth. But the records also reveal that upon entering the dense, low-frequency field of post-cataclysm Earth, a veil of amnesia descends. This forgetting is a necessary part of the game, a way to ensure that the soul has a truly immersive and authentic learning experience. The challenge of life, therefore, is not to learn something new, but to remember what you already knew before you came here. The records then lay out, with breathtaking clarity, the two great opposing paths of soul evolution that a being can choose after it has awakened within the dream. This is the cosmic debate between Ra and Tahuti, made explicit. The path of Ra, the path of absorption, is described as the path of the solar return. It is a valid, but ultimately limited, path of ascension. The soul who chooses this path focuses on purification, on surrender, on dissolving the ego and the sense of separate self, until it has achieved a state of such perfect purity that it can be reabsorbed into the consciousness of its local star, our sun. This is a path of peace, of release from the burden of reincarnation, a blissful end to the cycle of suffering. But it is also an end to the individual. The spark returns to the fire, but it ceases to be a spark. Many of the world's great religions, especially those that emphasize surrender, devotion to a single, external God, and the goal of a heavenly union, are the exoteric, fragmented reflections of this solar path. It is a path of dependency. The path of Tahuti, the path of integration, is described as the path of the stellar forge. It is a far more difficult, more dangerous, and ultimately more powerful path. The soul who chooses this path does not seek to dissolve the self, but to perfect it. They do not seek to surrender their individuality. They seek to crystallize it into a vessel of indestructible sovereign light. This is the path of the alchemist, the magician, the god in the making. It is the path of radical self-responsibility, of shadow integration, of the conscious mastery of all the cosmic laws. The goal of this path is not to return to a source, but to become a source. The soul who completes this journey does not get absorbed by a star. They become one. They achieve a state of permanent, individual, and immortal consciousness, a being who can create and sustain worlds of their own. The mystery schools, the hermetic traditions, the path of the Uraeus, these are the hidden reflections of this stellar path. It is a path of sovereignty. The records make it clear that the choice is yours. There is no judgment. But they also make it clear that the system of Ra, the solar tyranny that has dominated this planet for millennia, has done everything in its power to hide the existence of the second path. It has branded it as heresy, as black magic, as the work of the devil. It has taught you that the desire for individual sovereignty is the sin of pride, the ultimate act of rebellion against God. It has done this because the path of integration is a direct and absolute threat to its own existence. A universe of independent, co-creating gods has no need for a single, ruling sun. The records of Thoth, therefore, are not just a history book. They are a declaration of independence for the human soul. They are the forbidden gospel that tells you that you do not have to be a sheep in a divine flock. You have the right to become a shepherd. You have the right to become a star. And the map to that becoming has been waiting in your own forgotten history all along. The act of hiding the records was Thoth's most profound and heartbreaking act of love for humanity. He was not just concealing a history, he was quarantining a power that, in our fallen state, would have destroyed us. The cataclysm that sank Atlantis did not just shatter our cities, it shattered our minds. The survivors were not just homeless, they were psychically and genetically damaged. The sophisticated, multi-stranded, crystalline DNA that had allowed the Atlanteans to wield the science of consciousness was now a liability. In the new, low-frequency world, a fully active Atlantean genome would have been like a supercomputer plugged into a faulty, low-voltage socket. It would have simply burned out the biological vessel. The amnesia was a mercy. The dormancy of our junk DNA was a cosmic failsafe. Thoth knew that to simply hand the full, uncensored records of Atlantis to a traumatized and infantile humanity would be to hand a book of matches to a child in a room full of gasoline. So he began the great work of preservation, a multi-layered strategy designed to protect the knowledge from us until we were ready for it. His first act was to create the external archives, the stone library. He and his loyalist priests, the sons of the Law of One, used the last vestiges of the old sonic science to construct or repurpose the great monolithic sites like the Giza complex. But these were not designed to be easily read. The knowledge was encoded in a language of pure mathematics, of geometry, of celestial alignment. It was a lock that could only be opened by a civilization that had redeveloped a high level of scientific and astronomical understanding. He was future-proofing the knowledge, ensuring it could only be accessed by a humanity that had reclimbed a significant portion of the ladder of intellectual evolution. His second act was the creation of the symbolic archives, the myths and religions of the New World. He took the complex, literal science of Atlantis and translated it into a simple, allegorical language that our traumatized minds could comprehend. The physics of consciousness became the drama of the gods. The science of Kundalini became the story of a serpent. The history of the Syrian war became a battle between a sun god and a demon of the dark. These myths were not lies. They were a form of spiritual first aid. They were a container, a vessel that could carry the essence of the truth safely through the coming dark age, in a form that would not overwhelm or destroy the minds of the listeners. He gave us religion as a placeholder for a science we were no longer ready to handle. But his third and most brilliant act was the quarantine of the internal archives. He did not just allow our higher DNA to go dormant, he actively participated in creating the seal. He helped to install the veil of forgetting between the conscious and the subconscious minds. This veil is not a natural part of the human condition. It is a piece of ancient metaphysical software, a firewall designed to protect our fragile, waking ego from being overwhelmed by the infinite, multidimensional data stored in our own cellular memory. He made us forget our godhood, not to punish us, but to protect us. It was an act of cosmic compassion, the decision of a wise father to hide his most powerful tools until his children were mature enough not to misuse them. And all of this was done in direct opposition to the agenda of the newly ascendant solar cult of Ra. Ra and his sons of Belial did not want the records preserved. They wanted them erased. They began their own great work, the work of the great forgetting. They hunted down the loyalist priests. They infiltrated the mystery schools and distorted the teachings. They took the symbolic myths created by Thoth and began to interpret them literally, turning a science of self-liberation into a religion of external worship and control. They took Thoth's placeholder of God and turned it into a prison. This is the war that has been fought in the shadows of our history for the last 12,000 years. It is the war between the preservers and the erasers. The followers of Thoth, working in secret societies and hidden lineages, have fought to keep the trail of breadcrumbs intact, to ensure that the path back to the memory of Atlantis was never completely lost. The followers of Ra have worked to systematically destroy that path, to convince humanity that the prison of the five senses is the only reality and that the story they have written is the only history. Your very presence here, your resonance with this forbidden knowledge, is a sign that the age of quarantine is ending. The seals are weakening, the veil is thinning, and Thoth's long, patient gambit is finally about to pay off. He hid the truth, not to keep it from you, but to keep it for you, and the time of your inheritance is at hand. The rediscovery of the records is not happening in the dust of an archaeological dig. It is happening in the consciousness of our species. The rising frequency of the planet, a part of a great 26,000-year cosmic cycle, is the external trigger that is beginning to dissolve the seals. This new high-vibration energy is saturating our solar system, and it is acting as a planetary-scale activation signal. It is the key that is beginning to turn the lock. And as the external frequency rises, it is triggering a resonant awakening in the internal archives, in the dormant codes of our own DNA. This is not a passive process. It is a biological event, and you are living in the midst of it. The symptoms of this awakening are everywhere, though the system will call them by other names. The massive increase in what is labeled as ADHD is, in many cases, the awakening of a multidimensional consciousness that is no longer capable of tolerating the slow, linear, and boring reality of the old world. The epidemic of anxiety and existential dread is the friction between the emerging sovereign self and the old fear-based programming. The explosion of interest in ancient civilizations, in esoteric wisdom, in the nature of consciousness itself. This is not a trend. This is a mass remembering. The library within is coming online, and we are all, on a subconscious level, beginning to search for the user manual. The records are surfacing. They are bleeding through the veil. They are appearing in your dreams, in moments of synchronicity, in the intuitive flashes of insight that you can no longer ignore. The past lives you remember are not fantasies. They are files being decompressed from your own internal hard drive. The unexplainable skills you possess, the deep, soul-level resonance you feel with certain places or certain people. These are the echoes of your own, forgotten Atlantean identity. The system of control is reacting to this with a final, desperate surge of chaos. It is turning up the volume of its own low-frequency broadcast. It is amplifying the signals of fear, of division, of distraction. It is trying to drown out the new, emerging song of awakening with a deafening scream of static. It is a battle for your attention, for your frequency, because the system knows that the outcome of this war is not predetermined. It depends on you. It depends on your choice. Will you tune your consciousness to the fear-based broadcast of the dying world? Or will you have the courage to turn off the noise, to go within, and to begin the disciplined work of listening to the records that are awakening in your own soul? To decode the records is not an intellectual exercise. It is an act of embodiment. You must become the resonant vessel that is capable of receiving and translating this high-frequency information. This is the work of the three keys: the purification of your voice and body, the sonic key, the discipline of your mind and focus, the geometric key, and the opening of your heart to a state of unwavering compassion and integrity, the ethical key. As you do this work, you are not just healing yourself. You are becoming a conscious, walking, and talking time capsule of the lost world. You are becoming a living record. You stop being a seeker of the truth and become a beacon of it. Your own stable, coherent energy field becomes a sanctuary, a safe harbor for others who are struggling in the chaos of the shifting age. This is the great and sacred task that Thoth has entrusted to us. He did not preserve the knowledge for us to simply study it. He preserved it for us to become it. We are not here to rebuild the physical cities of Atlantis. We are here to build the new Atlantis, the city of light, in the collective heart of humanity. The records are not a history of what was. They are a blueprint for what can be. And the architects of that new world are not the gods in the sky. They are the ones who are waking up right here, right now. They are you. The final record of Thoth is not a story of the past. It is a choice about the future. The legacy of Atlantis is a double-edged sword. The same science that allowed them to build a paradise on Earth was the science that, when corrupted by ego, caused its destruction. We are the inheritors of both sides of this legacy. The dormant codes within us contain not only the potential for godhood, but also the memory of the fall, the capacity for a hubris so great it can shatter worlds. As this knowledge returns, as our power awakens, we are being presented with the same choice that our Atlantean ancestors faced. It is the choice between the path of Ra and the path of Tehuti. It is the choice between power used for control and power used for liberation, between a unity that is forced and a unity that is chosen. The system of control, the shadow of the Ra program, is offering you its version of the future. It is a future of technological transhumanism, of centralized global governance, of a smart grid that monitors and manages every aspect of your life. It is the dream of the sons of Belial made manifest, a world of perfect, predictable, and soulless order. A comfortable cage, a golden age of slavery. It is the path of absorption, repackaged for a new millennium. It is offering to take away the burden of your freedom in exchange for the promise of your safety. And many, in their fear and their confusion, will choose this path. But the records of Thoth offer a different future. A future that is not built on external technology, but on the awakening of our own internal, divine technology. A future that is not centralized, but is a decentralized network of sovereign, awakened souls. A future where power is not hoarded, but is shared. A future where the goal is not control, but creativity. This is the path of integration. It is a future that is messy, that is unpredictable, that is often difficult, but it is a future that is free. This choice is not on a ballot. It is not in a political movement. It is in your heart. It is in the small daily decisions you make. Do you feed the system of fear, or do you cultivate your own inner peace? Do you give your power away to external authorities, or do you take radical responsibility for your own life? Do you consume the distractions, or do you create your own reality? Every thought, every word, every action is a vote. You are casting your ballot for the future of this planet right now. Thoth did not leave us the records so that we could worship him or the past. He left them to us as a warning and as a promise. The warning is what we are capable of in our arrogance. The promise is what we are capable of in our wisdom. You are the living record. You are the forgotten secret. The story of Atlantis is not over. You are its final and most important chapter. The one where the survivors of the cataclysm finally remember who they are and choose this time to get it right. Do not look for a leader to guide you. The guru you have been searching for is the awakened consciousness that sleeps within you. Do not wait for a sign from the heavens. Your own healed, open heart is the only signal that matters. The great work is not in the future. It is now. The lost city is not under the ocean. It is in your soul, waiting for you to come home. Read the records, remember the truth, and then choose your path, because the entire cosmos is holding its breath, waiting to see what we will build from the ashes of our own forgotten glory. If this video resonated with you, let us know by commenting, "I understood it."